All right, welcome back. So we're continuing here our coverage of Ultimate Black Panther with issue number 19. And in this issue, we see Killmonger, who has now claimed the Wakandan throne for himself, begin to seek further answers about the dark vibranium, which leads to him going face to face with Ra and Khonshu. And through this confrontation, Killmonger learns who the real traitor of Wakanda is. Now, meanwhile, Black Panther receives a visitation here from Bast, but this encounter isn't like anything that he's seen before, and what follows forces T'Challa to do something that none of the previous Black Panthers ever could. So when we pick this back up here, we see Killmonger speaking with the Sorcerer Supreme and Nan about the dark vibranium. So he asks a question, he's like, yo, these progenitors, you can't sense them at all, Ninan? To which she says, not anymore. I can feel the dark vibranium woven into Wakanda, but before it was like hearing an antenna get a signal. Now nothing but silence. So when Killmonger asks, can we just turn the power back on? She says, well, I would not recommend that because many predators are silent before the moment they strike. But the way that Killmonger sees it, he's like, after what happened with the Voodoo Khan, them trying to kill him and Okoye, the people in Wakanda right now are absolutely terrified, and T'Challa is gone and Aurora with him. So someone needs to do something. To which Inan says, she's like, no one is stopping you from acting, Eric. Shuri admires you. Okoye admires you. I am an outsider here. I can't prescribe what needs to happen. So Killmonger, he's like, okay, well, what then do you suggest? So she mentions that this Moon Knight, Ra and Khonshu, they use this dark vibranium. I doubt that they would have without knowing its secrets. So when Killmonger asks the question, he's like, so do you think that I should ask him? To which her response is like, well, T'Challa would, and I think that you should make them speak. But then the one thing that Killmonger says is like, well, Okoye would not approve of that. To which Inan is like, well, the queen does not have to know, and I can make certain that she won't. And then she hands him this thing and says, this is called the Athame of Woe, and it does what you can imagine it does. But before he goes in, he has one question here for Inan. He's like, why are you aligning with me? What's your interest in all of this? You're not Wakandan. To which she responds, she's like, well, in my meditation, I saw what these progenitors are capable of, and I felt their desire. It's time to take off the gloves for the sake of the world. I am a sorcerer, not a humanitarian. And in the face of evil, everything is permitted. So next, they make their way over here to the prison cell that is housing Ra and Khonshu. And unlucky for the guards that were standing watch because Inan face plants them, knocking them unconscious. And she doesn't stop there. Inan places magical gags over Ra and Khonshu's mouth. And as they walk in, Inan tells Killmonger, their power has been nullified. You can take your time. So when Killmonger steps in, he says, I don't know which one of you is the leader, and I really don't care. But I know that you must understand what vibranium is hiding because you wanted to use it for yourself. Inan let them speak. Now, naturally, Khonshu isn't having it, and he's basically like, listen, I ain't telling you nothing. And then he starts taunting Killmonger, calling him a vagabond who hangs with the jungle woman. And listen, man, everything was cool until he started disrespecting our storm like that. But obviously, this was all a ploy to kind of piss off and distract Killmonger. So Khonshu continues on. He's like, you have no idea what this place is, and you can't kill me. The real king believes I have value. To which Killmonger replies back and he's like, I don't want to kill you. From what the Sorcerer Supreme tells me, this dagger is filled with pain of everyone it has ever cut. And it can give all those generations of pain to anyone else. So I'm going to ask you to tell me what you know. Or don't, and I'll ask you again once the dagger is finished with you. Now Khonshu is like, bro, I am no stranger to pain, vagabond. To which Killmonger's like, yeah, I figured. And it's in that moment where he drives that dagger directly into Khonshu. And of course, Khonshu would naturally also have black blood, but let's move on. But before we get the aftermath here of that scene, we jump back here to a flashback of about 4 weeks ago when the progenitor, aka Zenan, had just shown up right after T'Challa had just clapped Storm's cheeks. And right now, because Storm is missing, T'Challa has one question. He's like, where is Aurora? Now, Zenan is like, yo, you can't ask me questions. You are nothing. You should be on your knees. And of course, naturally, T'Challa doesn't like that answer, so then he goes on the attack. And honestly, I kind of love this initial setup here where he does this backflip before he charges at Zenan. And then he gives him a power kick right here, knocking him off his feet. And he kicks him in the chest. And then this man T'Challa picks up a whole table like it was a paperweight. And he was just whipping Zenon with it back and forth and back and forth. But here's the thing. I couldn't help but think this man is expending a lot of energy right now. And he doesn't even really truly understand who he's fighting. So after T'Challa's done here, he says these words so confidently. He's like, there is a side of me that you don't want to know, whatever you are. Which is when Zenon just starts laughing. And then he starts going on the attack. He charges in and then he grabs T'Challa by the neck. And as he's holding him up, he says these words to him. It's like, now I will help you kneel. And then he tosses him out of the house. Bye-bye cabin. And as T'Challa is trying to catch his bearings, Zenon just does not give him a chance at all. But then he continues on by saying these words. He's like, you had a role in this, speaking to T'Challa. He's like, but that role is finished. Your bloodline has done what must be done. So now your blood means nothing at all. But T'Challa, he gets himself back up to his feet, showing that I don't quit energy. And then he tries to charge at the progenitor again, but the progenitor just catches his fist. And it's in that moment here where the progenitor just breaks his arm. And T'Challa is writhing in pain. And man, Zenon is so savage in this moment because he holds his head and tells T'Challa, kiss your precious crown, and just slams his face straight on the ground. Oh my gosh. And T'Challa, he's like, stop you. But it's here where Zenon is like, fragile man, you don't even know what I am. And then he jumps up in the sky, doing his best Goku impression, I might add. And as T'Challa is just like crawling on the ground, trying to find some semblance of life here, the progenitor comes straight down. And for a moment here, it looks like T'Challa's done. But right in the nick of time, here comes a purple panther. And that is what saves our King T'Challa. And then we hear the words of Bast that say, place your faith in me, child. But then we get a look and seek here at what Zenon was looking at. Because in this moment here, we see the Black Panther in this purple hue. And I initially thought it was just one, but it seems as if though there were many panthers circling Zenon. And then he begins to get engulfed by many of them. And that was followed by a massive explosion. And in the aftermath of that, as T'Challa is just not in good shape, we hear the words of Bast again as she begins to say, she says, the responsibility of all generations has found you. And as a hand is placed on T'Challa's face, Bast continues to say, she's like, what you call the progenitor, he will return, and you are not ready to stop him. And then we get this majestic shot here of Bast, which I absolutely love seeing. As she continues on by saying, but I can make you strong enough for the truth, strong enough for the pain, strong enough to keep your kingdom and this world free. But you must do what your ancestors could not. That's like always the line, right? You must do what your ancestors must not. But I digress. As she continues on by saying, you cannot wear the panther, you must become it. But then we jump back in that moment here to the present time. And this is where we get this massive reveal here from the interrogation that Killmonger had with Ra and Khonshu. But before we get there, Okoye is pissed. And she kicks things off by saying, we do not torture people in Wakanda. But here Killmonger says, he's like, there is no Wakanda, Okoye. You have buildings you can't trust, technology that you don't understand, and you have a traitor. To which Okoye is like, traitor, we neutralized that spy and Maitri Namala's zealots have been banished. But Killmonger's like, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about someone close enough to King T'Challa's father and who would tell Moon Knight T'Challa's moves. One of those magicians in your cell told me who it is, and he was in no condition to lie. So then Okoye naturally is like, well, who the hell are you talking about? And this is when I was a little bit taken back here as Killmonger says the name Shuri. And maybe I have not been paying attention so far, but I didn't really see this sort of line up to it actually being Shuri. To which, of course, Okoye is like, yeah, I don't care what you did to him in that cell, he's lying. She wouldn't let her own father die, which is basically what I'm thinking too. I'm like, 616, Shuri, potentially, but like, I don't know. It just sounds weird. Either way, let me know what you think. But then Killmonger continues on. He's like, and that's not the only thing that he said, because then he begins to tell her about Wakanda. And he mentions how he said that Wakanda isn't a city, it's a gateway. Dark vibranium breaks a rift between dimensions. It's more than unbreakable metal and a conductive power source. He's like, yeah, I read too. But then he continues. He's like, ancient Wakandans used a power they didn't fully understand. And the price of that power has created a gateway to beings that want their world here. And additionally, and for our world to become theirs. So then she asks a question. She's like, okay, so what do we do to stop them? And this is when he says, Khonshu said dark vibranium also created a way for the gods to visit the world of men, which is huge. And as he's saying this here to Okoye, we get this beautiful shot of the Black Panther walking into what looks like another dimension, which I assume is the ancestral plane here, because we do see those Black Panthers again, who I assume are the past kings and queens of Wakanda. And then he says these words to Okoye. He's like, your Black Panther was a tribute to these gods, and T'Challa's blood has part of them in it. All his line do. We need to find T'Challa, and T'Challa needs to claim his power to win this war. All right, so I'm all here for the Black Panther glow up, and it's about time that Bast finally steps in. What I'm still wrapping my mind around here is Shuri's betrayal. It's not so much the betrayal, but more so the fact that she would allow what happened to her father to happen, unless of course that was not a part of the plan. Let me know your thoughts down below. Also, special shout out here to our channel members on YouTube and over at Patreon. And if you want to support Keepin' It Comic and help us grow further so that we could continue to further improve the content that we bring to you, one way to do that is by becoming a channel member. You can click on the join button down below to check out those additional perks, or you can also become a Patreon member as well to receive similar perks as well. The link to check that out is going to be down below in the description. Don't forget to leave a like on this video here, subscribe if you're brand new to the channel, and as always, thanks so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!